I leveraged this really powerful research tool called Google.
Yes, I'm familiar.
And did a lot of Google research as I was starting the company. I didn't do any like paid research. I mean, this was a shoestring budget.
Welcome to the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. I'm your host, Sam Hind, and I am honored that you chose to spend this time with us here today. If you are in the direct selling industry and you're trying to grow a business, maybe you are brand new and you're looking for some tips and tricks along the way, or perhaps you're looking for continued growth and you'd love to learn more about this amazing industry, you are in the right place. Today, I had the privilege of interviewing Sarah Shadonix, the CEO and founder of Scout and Cellar. Scout and Cellar is a direct selling company that produces and sells wine. They are one of the largest direct-to-consumer wineries in the USA. But what I love most about Sarah and the story around Scout and Cellar is the vision they cast for the future. Sarah's got some exciting passions that she shares, but she also shares where all of this stems from and what she is doing with it. She's got an incredible mindset and she is very passionate about giving other people amazing opportunities of growth as well. I know you're going to love this interview. You're going to love hearing from Sarah, and you'll be just as excited as I am about what lies ahead for this amazing company. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand over to the interview I did with Sarah. Grab yourself paper and pen because, as always, some golden nuggets are dropped along the way, and enjoy the episode. Well, hello there and welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. Welcome on in, Sarah. It is amazing to have you here. I'm super excited for our chat. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Sam. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, look, I'm super excited to chat with you a little bit more about the Scout and Cellar story. But before we get into all of that, can you share with us a fun fact about Sarah?
Sure. Well, I'll share two.
Okay,
I'm a huge two. Okay. I'm a huge sneakerhead. So I wear sneakers all the time. Huge sneakerhead. And I'm a Nike person. So Jordans, Air Force Ones.
Okay. Yeah.
And the crazier and the louder and the more fun and the more unique, the better.
I love that. My boys would love you. You guys would get along like a house on fire. They love Nike, anything Nike. And of course, Jordans are their absolute favorite. And my 15-year-old is currently saving up for his very first pair, and he's doing everything he can to convince me that I need to go halves with him, which was fine until I saw how much they cost. And I thought, maybe not quite halves, but I love that. I think that's great. Living in comfort is what that says to me. You're like super productive, business focused. We're not worried about sore feet. We've got better things, more important things to do.
It's also a statement. I've been wearing them since I started the company in 2017, and it was fun to go from the heels as a lawyer to the sneakers as an entrepreneur.
That's interesting. So you consciously made that decision to do the switch. It was kind of like, I'm in my own business now. I'm going to be comfortable and make a statement with my feet. Like, is that kind of where that decision goes?
It was a slow build. I mean, I'm an athlete. I grew up, I played sports in college. So I love athletic footwear and activity and being, being on the move. So the sneaker vibe just kind of, was part of who I am. And I was grateful for an opportunity to express it in my professional life. And so I seized the moment.
I love it. I think that's awesome.
Just went with it.
I think that's really great. I attempted to make a statement by switching to leggings, you see, when I started working from home, but it just wasn't as cool and didn't look as good. And so I switched back to the suits. But I have decided that heels with babies, much harder to do. So today I'm in my heels because today is my office day, but I'm thinking that sneakers is a really great way to go. I admire that. Maybe I need to come up with like a new little statement that's comfortable. I think that's great.
A new vibe. It's awesome.
Doc Martens. Love it. That's what I'll do. Doc Martens. I'll just have all the different colors of the rainbow because they have all the colors now. When I was a teenager, it was black or black, or it was the matte or shiny. That's what you had. Now, of course, you've got all the colors. So there you go. I'll do Doc Martens, you do sneakers, and we'll be giving chilled vibes together.
Deal.
So you said two things. What's the other thing?
The other thing is music. I love music, and I'm a fanatic about not only music, but also music trivia.
Oh.
So I am like Shazam for music, but it's really not as much about me, Sam, as it is about like the culture that's a part of Scout and Cellar. Is we are a culture powered by music. Music trivia is a part of who we are. We play it monthly. And my team loves music. We are fast and furious at guessing, and it's just become a deep part of who we are. So it's really fun.
That's actually really cool. So your conventions or conferences are very interesting. There's a lot of music that comes about there.
Music is front and center. Yep.
I love it. And there's a lot to be said for that, because music can also help change mindset, shift the space that you're in. I think that's really cool. I love it. So speaking of Scout and Cellar, I would love for you to share a little bit with our listeners about your background and what inspired you to start Scout and Cellar. What is it all about? What sets it apart? It's a very unique company. I'm fascinated by it, and I'd love for you to share a little with our listeners about this amazing direct selling business.
I would love to. Thank you. So quick about me, which explains kind of how Scout and Cellar came to be. I grew up on a farm in North Texas. Loved everything about things that are grown and how much hard work it takes to grow something well, and was really passionate and curious about that. Took all that passion and curiosity and became a lawyer. And
as you do, of course. Hang on, come back a sec. Why lawyer?
My dad was a lawyer.
Okay. Family business.
And I loved, and I admired, he had a lot of really deep, strong, lifelong relationships with business owners, with entrepreneurs, with small business owners, medium-sized business owners. And that shaped my dad's life. And those business owners also shaped my life, so much so that they inspired me, I think, indirectly and directly to start Scout and Cellar, because I literally grew up around these guys. And so, long kind of circle, came back after our second kid was born, and felt inspired to get back to my roots of, working in grown things and farming. And so what better way to do that than with the most delicious farmed product, which in my humble opinion is wine.
Of course. And many people's
and exactly. So I grew up in a home where food was cooked, and home cooked meals were on the table, and wine happened to be around occasionally. And so pursued some wine certifications, ended up going to work for a very small company in Sonoma, California in the wine industry, and found out two very important lessons. Number one, I knew nothing about the business of wine. And number two, Sam, I learned that the wines that were lining the grocery store shelves in America, lining the restaurant menus in America, were not the wines that I was passionate about, nor were they the wines that I envisioned that could be grown on a farm or in a vineyard. Mm-hmm. They were highly commercialized, highly produced, highly manipulated, not reflective of agriculture at all, but the reflection of a processed food product.
Yep.
And so I thought, gosh, there's amazing wines out there in the world that I'm aware of. I drink them, but they're hard to find, and you don't know to look for them unless you're a wine geek. And so it occurred to me that I could create something better to share with people in mass. And that is, commercializing a naturally grown, naturally produced wine that's produced without herbicides, fungicides, insecticides, pesticides, it's pesticide free, and then is made without any additives, basically as pure of a wine as exists. And I wanted to deliver it to as many people as possible that were interested in that. And so that's where the idea for this business came from. And at the time I was working in this e-commerce company, this little tiny company, and there was a big opportunity to sell wine in e-commerce. And so I thought, okay, we're going to create this whole new kind of wine that most people don't know about. That is pure, clean, delicious, natural wine made by small growers all around the world.
Yeah.
And I'm going to sell it in a place where most people aren't even shopping for wine. That is online. So how to power those sales.
So I've got to ask the question, because you come from a farming and agricultural background. Have you ever gone down the road of producing your own wine? Or is it purely looking after and supporting other small growers?
So we don't grow fruit at Scout and Cellar. We work with farmers and growers. We source fruit directly from them, and then we make the wine. We have a winemaking team at Scout and Cellar. We make the wine ourselves. Yep.
Amazing. Okay, so you make your own wine, but you're sourcing the product from other people. So there's quite a combination going on there. Mm-hmm. I love that. And so the wine that you produce, you talk about clean wine, you talk about it having no nasties in it and being really unique and different. How is it unique and different other than, because I'm hazarding a guess here that you're also talking about, and when you and I chatted last time, you made the comment, I am a self-confessed wine geek. And you talked about your wines being quite different. So how are they different? You know, if someone were to try a Scout and Cellar wine compared to what they might have been used to, what can they expect?
Sure. They're different in two main respects. Number one, from a quality perspective. So they're farmed meaningfully differently. They're farmed without chemicals. And then they're lab tested to be actually free from them in the bottle. And that goes beyond organic and biodynamic standards that exist globally. So our standard is more stringent, and our standard is called the Clean Crafted Commitment. So every wine that we source, we produce, we make that goes to our customers' homes and into their glasses passes our Clean Crafted Commitment. And so it includes this growing standard. And then there's how do you make the wine? How do you convert grapes into wine? And all of our wine is made without any artificial additives, the teeniest, tiniest amount of sulfites. And we include all ingredients on our labels and in our soiled sip report, which is like baby blockchain for wine. So the making of the wine and the growing of the wine is meaningfully different insofar as it's a higher quality than any other wine out there in the world insofar as a consistent standard. That's the first way it's different. The second way it's different is in terms of its taste. So there's a lot of natural, organic, biodynamic wines out in the world that are really delicious. And I think that they're really delicious. But for the average wine consumer or wine novice, they might taste a little unique. And so our wines are specifically made by nature to be objectively delicious. Because if it's not delicious, it doesn't matter. And we can't generate interest in our brand and our movement if we don't make just generally easy to drink, enjoyable, delicious wines. So that's the two ways they're different.
Now, you took it a little step further, though, because one of the things that I discovered about your wines is you also went, what's important to people right now? What do people care about? Who's our target audience? And you've got a range of sugar-free wine, which for me, or low sugar wine. And this for me was quite a special thing to see because it was like you were tapping into something that people really cared about and you went, this is what they want. This is what we're going to make happen. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Sure. I mean, most of our wines are zero sugar.
Wow.
Almost all, about 95% of our wines are zero sugar. And we've just started advertising that because since we started the company, that's become something over the last 7 years that's actually become more important to people.
Yeah.
Our wines have always been, 95% of our wines have always been zero sugar. We've actually
was
just
that
started touting it.
Or it just happened that way?
We just started telling people it's always been that way, but it's just becoming more important to people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I don't feel I know that wine in Australia versus the US is somewhat a little bit different, and wine in Australia. I mean, I grew up in a wine growing region, and I'm pretty certain if I walked into some of those wineries right now, which by the way are quite old school, not all of them, because if we've got any of them listening to this, they'll be like, we're the young people that have come in and taken over. But some of those wineries have been around for like over 100 years. And I know that if I walked into some of them and said, do you have any sugar-free wine? They would be like, why are you spitting in my face? This is, we make good wine. We're not here to make healthy wine. So what was the inspiration behind that? And, does it, and I'm sure it doesn't because I'm guessing here that this is also very important to you, but does it get in the way of the quality of the wine or even the flavor by having sugar-free wine?
No, I'll answer that in two ways. It doesn't get in the way at all. And there's so many things I love about the wine industry. And one of the best parts about the wine industry is its deep, deep traditions.
Yes.
But that's one of the things that unfortunately gets in the way of wine evolving.
Yeah.
Is our honor and respect maybe to too much of an extent of our traditions. Yeah. And so that's one of the things that we're really trying to do at Scout and Cellar is push the industry forward with how we market, how we talk to customers, and how we make our wines in an effort to, bring in, a younger demographic, a different demographic into our industry, so that they can taste the amazing products that we're making. Another really point of difference about our products, about our amazing wines, they have zero sugar, they have no pesticides, they have no chemicals.
Yeah.
And because they don't have any of that, the impact the benefit to you as a consumer when you drink them, unless you overconsume, you're probably not going to suffer the typical like the typical detriments that happen when you drink wine, which is headache, hangover, all that kind of stuff.
So healthy wine is what you're promoting here, essentially.
I'm not saying healthy. I'm just saying you're not going to get hungover.
Yeah. It's not going to have the same detrimental effects.
Nope.
Now, with all of that being said, I want to come back to the direct selling industry. So you've got this amazing product over here. You've got this incredible passion to drive the wine industry forward. Mm-hmm. But then you also came from not a direct selling background, yet you decided to step into the direct selling industry. Can you tell us a bit about how that decision came about?
Like most things, it was not very linear. Like I said, I decided to...
It's business. We do this.
I know. If you had the benefit of hindsight, we'd all do things a little differently. Yeah.
We'll ask that question next. That sounds like fun.
I know, right? I had been working in e-commerce and saw a big opportunity to launch a brand in e-commerce. About 1.5% of wine was being sold online at the time that I was starting this company in 2014 and 15. And like 25% of retail was online at the time. So I'm like, oh, look at this opportunity. All this blue sky. So I'm launching this whole new kind of wine that nobody's ever heard of in a space where most people are not shopping for wine. And I needed a compelling way to drive sales. And so I did some market research and looked at who buys wine and why they buy wine. And we're the primary buyers of wine, Sam. And we buy wine based on 3 things: what our friends drink, the story behind the wine, and what the label looks like. Mm-hmm. And at the time, a friend of mine across the street was selling a direct selling product. She was part of a direct selling company. And so I was asking her a bunch of questions. I was like, how does this work? Because at this time I had never been a part of a direct selling company, bought a direct selling product. I knew nothing other than the fact that I grew up in Dallas, Texas, which is the home of one of the largest global direct selling companies, Mary Kay. Yeah. And so she told me about how it worked. And I was like, maybe this model might work for what I'm trying to accomplish. It was as naive as that.
I love it. And so you thought, all right, this could be good. You stepped into it. Now, I know, and you know for a fact, that anybody coming into the direct selling industry for the first time, it can be a little bit like deer in headlights, quite a unique industry. You've obviously built a very successful business in this space, and I want to commend you for that. You've won awards. You have done amazing things. You guys are experiencing some amazing growth. But how has this industry helped to drive that and drive you forward? And you know, how have you become a part of this industry in that process?
I think, the industry has accepted me with open arms. I had a lot of just fortunate relationships in the beginning of folks that had been a part of the industry, both on the comp plan side and also some initial independent consultants that helped to launch the brand that really taught me how the industry worked. And so we experienced some quick growth off the bat. But then the direct sales space has really embraced me wholeheartedly, both as a shining star and an example of new and unique and different. But also, I think because I came from the outside and I did approach things differently, and we were doing things differently. We were marching to the beat of our own drum, but we were respecting the way that and the reasons that direct sales are great, and we were providing opportunity, and we are participating in the space. So my experience entering into and being a part of the industry has been nothing but great.
Amazing. Did the direct selling industry bring any challenges you didn't anticipate stepping into it?
Oh, are you kidding? 1,000, 1,000,000. I mean, so many. But every part of starting and running a business is challenging. I think the relational part, most specifically expectation management, which is something it's kind of my main job as a lawyer. But expectation management, I think I wasn't quite prepared for that piece of direct sales. Really the whole element of sales and the model and that piece, the motivation and the leadership, I got that, but it was the other elements, the kind of unspoken, the third rails, I had to navigate through and learn about that. But yeah.
And we often find that, having a volunteer sales force, of course, and being a volunteer sales force, there are challenges that come with that from both ends. You've also got a slight challenge, which is that, there are restrictions around how wine can be sold. You've navigated them by, setting up some very specific processes. How did that become a bit of a challenge at the start? Because you're dealing with a party plan. I mean, you guys have set yourself up a little like a party plan business where people can do tastings, etc., and demonstrations, but they can't buy direct, right? So if I come to one of your tastings, I can't then just purchase the wine to take away. I need to go online and buy them. Did I get that right?
Correct.
So this is one of the ways that you've had to get around those restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, so all orders have to be fulfilled by the winery. No cash and carry is how we frame it.
And so you've also, though, set up a subscription method so that people can choose a wine club. I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
So what was that something that you started doing at the beginning, or that kind of entered? Okay, so that's been there since day dot.
Yes, it's been there since the beginning, but I will say that for the first couple of years, it was almost impossible to be a wine club member at Scout and Cellar, and here's why. We changed prices on you every month. We were very terrible at communicating, and
I love the honesty. I think that's great.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, we were such a tiny company. We didn't expect to grow, and we were not, we were not backed by some big, we're a family company, and so. It was a very humbling experience to try to manage the wine club. And then in 2020, right before COVID, we evolved the wine club model to make it, consistent pricing month to month, and to introduce some wine club features and benefits. Yeah. And then the wine club really took off. Imagine when we reduced the friction, it grew.
Oh, amazing, right? A very important question here, though. When will you be coming to Australia?
I don't know.
Right. So we've got a lot of Australian listeners that are right now going, this sounds amazing. How do we order? And of course, the answer is we can't right now, because we all need to convince Sarah that she needs to bring Scout and Cellar here. Right. So
I need to come visit.
This space.
Yeah.
I love it. I do want to know, though, I mean, you guys have the whole core of the business is supporting the small producers, is creating something that's unique, that's not mass produced. So I'd really love to know, how do you balance maintaining the integrity and uniqueness of small producers with the demands that come with a growing customer base, a growing business? Because you guys are, obviously growing and you're doing amazing things, but how do you balance that? How do you keep the integrity of a small business and manage that?
You get the opportunity, as we grow, we get the opportunity to partner with more growers. And that's a blessing and a benefit. So as the business has flexed and grown over the years, we have an opportunity to just create opportunity for other growers in the US and all around the world.
Yeah. And so you're constantly bringing on.
Can I tell a quick anecdote about that?
Oh, 100%. I would love an anecdote.
So early on in Scout and Cellar history, this is Scout and Cellar lore, like this was 2018, I think. We worked with this tiny little Austrian producer, and he made this wine called Blaufränkisch. Do you know Blaufränkisch?
No, I do not.
Okay, well, it's hard to say, but easy to love. Okay. It is this inky purple grape that makes this like deeply colored dark red wine that is really flavorful, not super tannic, but like got some texture to it. But it is just like, if you like Syrah or Cabernet, like this is your jam. It is like really, really a cool wine. And we bought all of this gentleman's Blaufränkisch, like everything he grew. And it enabled him to purchase an adjacent vineyard and convert it to biodynamic farming.
Wow.
And it was being conventionally farmed. And so that's the first of, I've got probably 6 stories like that, where we worked with growers and we allowed them to create impact in their community, which is buy adjacent land or tell their neighbor, hey, like you can work with these guys. They'll buy all your fruit, but you got to take these steps. You got to convert how you're farming.
Yeah.
And so we've been able to create small, tiny, tiny little ripples of change in how farming is taking place in agricultural communities.
And so this is not just changing the wine and the wine industry. This is also changing environment, right? There's a lot of focus on changing the way that people farm to sustain our environment, right?
Yes. Yes.
And do you see that expanding beyond the wine industry? Is there anything?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, tell me about that.
So we launched coffee about a year and a half ago, and with the intended same effect. And so we're growing that category as well. And then we have more products coming online, wine adjacent to start, and then we'll go from there.
Wow. I love that. So there's quite a vision going on here. It's not,
Yes.
It started with wine. And so coffee is one that does bring up, there's a lot of controversy around the way that coffee is grown, but also the treatment of, a lot of the people who work where coffee is grown. Where are
in
you
the poverty
sourcing?
belt.
What was that? Sorry.
It's coffee is most generally grown in the poverty belt in the globe, right?
Which was going to be my next question. Where are you sourcing the beans from?
Right now, our house blend, which is our number one seller, is a 50-50 blend from Guatemala and Honduras. It's fair trade. It's pesticide free, low acid.
That's amazing. I love it. So I'm excited to see where this goes. So many different pockets of farming here that we can be having an impact with. So basically by people supporting your business, by people getting behind Scout and Cellar, they're also having a part to play in helping our environment as well and change the way that farming is happening, not just in your region, but globally.
Globally. Yep, absolutely.
I love that.
We're about to earn our B Corp certification any moment now. We'll be announcing that. So we're very excited to really, put our stamp of doing good on our brand.
That is amazing. And you've kind of hinted that obviously that you're looking at other areas of farming. Can you give us any hints of where you might be going with that?
Sure. I mean, you think of wine adjacents, things that you would consume with wine. So cheese, charcuterie, spirits, beer, wellness drinks.
Amazing. Wow. Okay. I love it. So let's come back to a comment you made before. I promised to ask another question. You talked about hindsight. I want to know, I got to ask the question from someone who's jumped into business and with all the challenges that come with that and all the learnings that come with that, knowing what you know now, would you launch any differently if you were to start the business again in 2024?
Oh, sure I would. Yes.
Look, in all seriousness, we love to hear a good story of a learning along the way. Have you had any major learning where you're like, wow, I feel like if I could share this with other business owners so they don't have to go through it, it's this little learning mistake, whatever it is along the way?
I mean, Sam, I have had so many learnings. What's the best one in this little bucket?
Yeah. I would like, in all seriousness, we've got so many amazing business owners that listen to this podcast. And one of the things that often I find other business owners are really passionate about sharing is their story, because they know how difficult it is to be a business owner. It's like, I don't want someone else to go through this same pain. If I can help somebody else to kind of like escape this little pothole that I found along the way, then, it's and it's great for our listeners to hear that not every business that's doing it, really well now, that it was a straight road. You just said it's not linear, right? It does this along the way. And you and I both know that because we've both been in business. I think it's great for other people to feel like, I'm not alone in there.
Yep. I'll tell two things. I think the first kind of global, like more high level kind of peanut butter smear to your answer is I think in life, but also in business and also in entrepreneurship, we do a really great job of talking about and celebrating our wins. Mm-hmm. And I think we don't do a very good job of talking about our failures and our mess ups.
Yeah.
We are like, oh, we should talk about them more. They're we should love them. We need to fail more, fail fast, fail more, all these things.
Fail forward. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we actually don't talk about them very much. And so, I can tell you we have failed more than we have succeeded. Yep. I mean, we've launched products that didn't work. We've launched campaigns that didn't work. We've missed revenue goals. I've hired bad employees. I hired a C-suite employer that I fired after 40 days. I have, wanted to fire myself at times.
Haven't we all? We've all been there.
Yeah. Yeah. We've waited till too late to order something. We had a most recent failure. I'll tell you this, and I'll offer another more foundational story. Packaging is very important to our brand and to our customers. So we put, for a holiday, we have specialized gift packaging for our brand. And the team got started on too late. We were focused on too many initiatives. Sometimes more is more, but sometimes more is not more. But last year we thought more was going to be more. And the team was late in getting the designs to the box manufacturer. And we had a pre-launch that we had already sold these gift sets. Oh, no. So we'd sold thousands of them. Mm-hmm. And the boxes hadn't arrived. And then they finally arrived, and they were totally misprinted. They were smeared, and the manufacturer had forgotten to put on a varnish or a finishing. So the printing all smeared.
Yep.
And so we called the manufacturer back, and they had to reprint the boxes. And they did. And then the truck with the boxes is coming back to our main, we have a couple of distribution facilities coming back, and it broke down.
I was just going to say, I don't like it. What happened to the truck?
It broke down. Yep. And so we're 3 weeks late. We're messaging all these customers and just telling them, hey, telling them the story behind the story about what happened. We messed up. We were too late. Box truck broke down. Thanks for your patience. I think, telling the truth and having integrity is always the right answer. But then as it relates to a more foundational story, when I was starting the company, we had kind of built the standard for the Clean Crafted Commitment, and the plan was to launch with 12 wines. And we get to close to launch day, and we don't have 12, we have 8. Mm-hmm. And our flagship feature wine that we have aligned on that has this beautiful story. It's farmed by this female that's been in the wine industry for 45 years. She's an icon. And we were going to feature it as our main feature wine for launch. We had built all these assets with, I'm not even sure what money, but it was our go to market launch wine to launch the company with. And Sam, nobody knows what Scout and Cellar is. Nobody knows what the Clean Crafted Commitment means. And 45 days before launch, I get the lab results back on this wine, and it's popped positive for a single pesticide. And it was such a low residue amount that I was and I didn't know much at the time. We hadn't tested a lot of wine, so I was oh, I'll just call her and review, ask her for her AUR report, which is an additive use report, which she hadn't provided yet. And I asked her, and I said, did you spray this particular pesticide, Boscalid? And she said, actually, yes, I did, because we had some mold in the spring.
Oh, no.
And I said, okay. And so then I had a decision to make. Are we going to keep this feature wine, sell a lot of it, make some money, get some good traction? It was delicious. Nobody was ever going to know. Mm-hmm. But we made the decision that if we let that wine through, then our standard meant nothing. Our integrity meant nothing. We were a company to be built on nothing. Yep. So I called her back. Her name was Mary. And I told her, I said, I'm so sorry. We'd already sent a PO. I said, we can't buy this wine. I said, I'll pay you for it, but hopefully you understand. And she said, she was very upset and disappointed and mad. And she sent a very nasty note back that stuck with me for a long time. But we did the right thing for the brand because we stuck to the standard that we were building and upon which we built the foundation of the company.
How do you make a decision like that? Because this is a situation where, like you said, no one would know. And you were using, you were utilizing the reputation and the name of this person in the industry, an amazing wine, and you'd already, you said, created assets around this. Mm-hmm. With money that was invested in this new business. This is enough to break most people as they're starting business. How do you make a decision like that, Sarah? I think that's insanely commendable that you did, but I want to know how you do that, because I think for a lot of people, they probably would have made the other decision, which is, I'm going to go with the easy option here, which is I'm just going to pretend like we don't know. No one's going to know, and we'll just be a little bit more careful next time. I love that you made that decision, because obviously you've made sure that, integrity first in this case. No one can ever ask a question that you're not afraid to answer as far as what's in the wines. But yeah, how do you, as a brand new business owner, make that decision, not knowing how it's all going to come out in the wash?
If you don't start out with the right foundation of integrity,
yeah,
which is a reflection of what we're all about. I mean, we're delivering a standard of quality to the consumer as our entire proposition.
yeah.
And if we're disregarding it from the start, we shouldn't even be in business. And so it was that looking down, like looking into the future 5 years and facing the regret, the feeling of regret, the knowledge of regret. Yeah. Honestly, that was the feeling of being a fraud.
Yeah. One of the things that we
fear of being a fraud. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things we talk to our listeners about a lot is start the way you intend to finish. And, if you go into anything, even when it comes to the way that you handle your money as a business, if you are unable to save with $10, how are you ever going to be able to save with 100 or with 1,000? If you, this is a really good example that, if you give a little here, how much are you going to give when the stakes are much higher later on down the track?
Correct.
And the opportunity is much greater. And it really is a test. I feel like when you, go into business, no matter what you believe, you do get tested by the universe. Do you really mean it? Do you really mean it? And you get these things come against you. I feel like that's probably one of those moments for you. And you probably weren't tested in quite the same way again, because it was like, nope, you've got resolve. And
I have been.
I'm sure it wasn't as hard as that decision in that sense. You were like, yep, no, we've made a hard choice in this space before, and I'll do it again. But I love that. I really want to commend you on that, because I think particularly as a brand new business owner, and the not knowing is a really difficult time. And that's also a time when you've also got a lot of people, particularly it shows you who your true friends are, but usually when you go into business, you've got a lot of people watching you going, is this or isn't it going to work? Is she crazy? Isn't she crazy? I'm just going to kind of stand on the sideline and watch, and I'll decide if I'm going to give my support later on. It really does separate those people that are there to have your back no matter what, and the ones that will have your back when, like you're successful and it looks like it's safe going. How for you was it entering into business for the first time? I assume for the first time, because you've come from obviously an agricultural background with your family, and then you've moved into law, and now you've gone, hey, I'm going to start a business. What was that like for you? I would love to know, what for you has been the most rewarding part, first of all, of being in business for yourself.
Creating opportunity for others.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, and this industry allows you to do that every single day, right?
Sure.
Which is what makes it so beautiful.
With our independent consultants, with our employees, with our grower partners, with our vendor partners. I mean, the benefit of entrepreneurship in the United States and around the world is you literally start with nothing, and then you get to create opportunity for others. And so that's the best part.
And what's been the hardest part of going into business? How many fingers have you got?
Everything else. Yeah, I mean, just the adversity of the day-to-day, the failures, the challenges, the headwinds, all the other parts are really hard, and just the knowledge that like you can't give up, and knowing that like giving up is not an option, is hard.
Yeah. It is. I actually did a podcast interview recently with the owner of the biggest franchise in Australia. And I asked him the question, what do you think, how did your business become so successful? And this is a guy who came from literally being a gardener and started with $25. And he's built one of the biggest gardening franchises globally. And his response was failure wasn't an option. I just took it off the table. I just didn't even consider that I might fail. So it wasn't I can't. It was just it's not even a choice. And I think that is definitely one of those traits that sets apart successful business owners or entrepreneurs and those that aren't, because then they're just staring at what they're doing versus what could happen. And it's kind of like they're taking a choice away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Yeah, I like that.
One of the challenges, though, that comes with direct selling, of course, is the unfortunate misconceptions that come about the industry from history, and particularly pyramid selling. We hear that word thrown around a lot. How have you navigated that? Because you've come into the industry for the first time, and so you've come from a situation where you were learning about the industry as you were going. How have you handled the skepticism or the misconceptions or the opinions even around what the direct selling industry is as you've grown?
With straightforward honesty, and complimenting our field and then describing our process. I mean, we are, our product, because of who buys it and why they buy it, our product is a natural fit for hand-to-hand sales. If you think about wine in particular, where we started, you buy wine in a restaurant. It's hand sold by the wine director, the wine steward, the sommelier. It is explained to you. You buy wine in a wine shop. Typically the wine steward, the wine guy or girl will come over and explain the wines to you and hand sell it to you. We're doing the exact same thing. And so our model is appropriate for our product and our product proposition. It just happens to be in the direct selling space. So that's like that makes sense to me. And anything else, I'm just, I look at our field and they are more accomplished than I am. They're doctors, they're lawyers, they're C-suite, executives, directors of companies, news anchors, realtors, teachers, nurses. Like, they're amazing people, men and women. And so I understand the stigma. I understand why it exists. But I think we're doing our best to chart a new path for what sharing a product can and should look like. And it just happens to be the direct sales space. So
I love it. And so speaking of your field, what do you think are 3 of the top qualities that any successful direct seller needs to possess in order to grow a successful business in this space?
Passion, curiosity, and a desire to have fun.
I love that. A desire to have fun. I love it. I think that's important in any business, though, to be fair. And you guys clearly do. You said at the start, you guys are playing music around the office. It's a core integral part of the business for you guys.
Yeah. Wine is a social product. Like, you don't drink a wine bottle is way too big to drink alone. Like, it demands to be shared. Coffee, it demands to be, you drink a cup of coffee with someone else. So our products are inherently social, demanding to be shared. And so they're fun. People love it when our consultants show up. Like, they're bringing the wine, the coffee, the cheese, the tequila, whatever.
Tequila, should be glass of wine, shot of tequila. Sounds like a fun office space, right?
Exactly.
I want to just come back to one other thing you said earlier. You were talking about how you recognized the 3 most important things to people, or your 3 observations about how people make a wine buying decision. And you talked about, drinking with the friends, the label, etc. Can you tell me how you, was this something that you just observed? Was it something that you, took lengths to find this information out? And how did you know it was so important to identify this information? Because I think a lot of people go into business serving everybody, and not being super specific about where they're placing themselves. And I think that's kind of like the magic to what you guys have created. I think it's awesome that you've been so specific and so focused on those 3 things. But how did that come about?
So I leveraged this really powerful research tool called Google.
Yes, I'm familiar.
And did a lot of Google research as I was starting the company. I didn't do any like paid research. I mean, this was a shoestring budget.
Yeah.
and I read a lot of trade articles. I was working in the space.
Yeah.
But it was in a handful of trade articles about wine marketing. And that's where I found the piece. I mean, today you could use AI, but I would validate it with some trade pieces. But yeah, it was just, and then I validated it with not only like other sources, but also just experience, and observing and also testing and learning. Like, of course, people rely on the label, like Heavenly Days, like that is the number one thing people say. But then they also rely on word of mouth and the story behind the wine. So Google. If you can't find it, if you haven't found it on Google, then just Google better.
I love that. But I do really respect what you guys have done there, and the fact that you've identified it's about what your friends drink, it's about the story, and it's about the label. And that brings into account the relational aspect, but it also brings into account as well the visual component of how people buy. And story, I think, is most important. And I really think most brands don't leverage story enough. And so you guys have based an entire business around the story, and you've just shared, a couple of those small stories, and there's going to be hundreds of those, I'm sure, as you're speaking about the producers and the wines and how they come about. And I really admire that. And I think it's a really important part of any successful business, particularly in the direct selling space. And I would really encourage our listeners as well to think about, if you don't have necessarily a company like Scout and Cellar where you've got a leader that's sourced the story for you, find the story behind the product. Find the story that helps people to connect, because people connect and buy through emotion, right? And so the story makes a difference. It's interesting you say that, Sarah, because one of the things I've discovered about wine personally is I love wine tasting. My husband calls me Dora the Explorer. I love exploring. I love discovering new things. And so wine tasting is an exciting thing for me. And I'm very blessed because we live in a place where there are a lot of wineries. And so one of my favorite things is just, if we happen to go past one, just pull in. I want to go in. I want to try the wine. And I love the story. And that is what they will talk to you about. They'll tell you the story about how the grapes were grown and then how the wine was created. But then they'll also usually tell you the story about how the winemaker came about it. There might be some kind of accident that happened, or, they discovered because they accidentally put the wrong this in here, and suddenly they made this incredible wine. And I would walk away every time. This was something I was laughing with my friends about. I would walk away with the wine in hand that I've just tasted, that I've gone, this is amazing. And you get home, you put it on the wine rack, right? And 6 months later, or a year later, or a month, whatever it is, you pull the wine off the wine rack and you go to drink it. It doesn't taste the same because you forgot the story, or you've kind of muddled it up with the other wines. You're like, I know I love this wine, but it doesn't quite taste as great as it did when I had it. And I'm not suggesting that the wine doesn't taste as good, but the point is that the story changes the experience, right?
Correct. Yep.
I think that's so important. I love that you guys have done that. And just as we're going into my favorite questions, though, Sarah, I've got to ask you this. Okay. What are your future goals? What exciting developments can we expect to see in the coming years? I know you've talked a little bit about some of the new products, etc. What else can we see and expect to see for Scout and Cellar, other than the fact that you're coming to Australia in the not so distant future?
I mean, continuing to expand products and create opportunity for others. We're also in retail, so we've got a retail brand. We're in a lot of retail shops and restaurants in the United States. So driving brand awareness for the benefit of our consultants through that brand is awesome and not typical for direct sales. So we like to do things differently. And that's part of our plan, is to introduce people to Scout and Cellar through this brand called Scout Wild, and then bring them into the Scout and Cellar community because they had it at a restaurant that they loved, or they bought it at a grocery store or a Target store or whatever. And so, so we're growing that. And then just, continuing to create an impact and encouraging people. Our focus is, and our reason for existing is, we want people to create a place for people to live for today and care for tomorrow.
Oh, I love it. So good. So good.
Right. All our products are about that. So
Sarah, favorite questions here. First one is, and I know that you're an avid reader, what is your favorite book to add to our accelerator book list?
So two, I'm an answer of two because I'm not quite sure what your book list is all about. So for nonfiction, it's The Hard Thing About Hard Things.
Okay.
Do you know that book?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And great book about an entrepreneur that started a company and survived a number of adverse events like all of us do. And then for fiction, it's Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand.
Atlas
Shrugged.
Okay, I'm going to check this one out. We have got all sorts of books on our book list, by the way. It is a huge book list because I love to ask this question. I love to read and our community loves to read. So
cool.
They're always looking for new good reads. So thank you. We'll put those ones, by the way, in the show notes in case you missed those two details with the links to those in there so you guys can check them out. And if you could have a superpower, any superpower, what would it be and why?
Probably the ability to start and stop. No, the ability to fly because it's just fun.
So I want to know what else is
like.
Come back. What were you going to say? What were you going to say?
Start and stop time, but that's just messing with the universe, and I don't want to do that. Like I want to be where I am, where my feet are. But in this superpower, I want to be moving around.
I love asking this question because I really think it shows people's character. I've just recently interviewed two scientists, and I don't get the pleasure of interviewing scientists very often, but they think very differently. One of them was an inventor, and I asked this question, and I could see him panicking because he said, I can't mess with the time continuum. I can't.
Yep.
Because the next question I'm going to ask you is the one where he just said, I can't answer that question, was this. If you could go back in time and say something to your past self, what would that be? And he panicked. But I'm going to ask you that question. I'm going to ask you. You've got to answer. I made him answer. So I'm going to ask you.
Trust your gut.
Trust your gut. Oh, that's a good one. That's an important one. I think as a mum, as much as a business owner, by the way. Trust your gut. I love it. And what is your favorite quote?
It's probably a quote by Winston Churchill, which is to improve is to change, but to be perfect is to change often.
Oh, okay. I like that one. Mm-hmm. Amazing. Sarah, we're going to wrap up now. Have you got anything else, any other magic to share with our amazing listeners just before we finish up? And, of course, how can they find out a little bit more about Scout and Cellar?
Go to scoutandcellar.com. Check us out on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. We'd love to engage with you, hear comments about the podcast. I think my last thing I'd say, Sam, is this isn't a quote, it's a poem, but it kind of defines who we are as a company. We give a copy out to our employees for their anniversary. And we read it at every company meeting. It's Rudyard Kipling's poem, If.
Yeah, I love this poem, and I heard you share it as well at a recent awards ceremony. Look, it's been such an honor having you with us today, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing the Scout and Cellar story. And most importantly, thank you for your passion, not just for the industry of direct selling, but also the agricultural industry, environment, wine industry. You are change makers. You're doing some amazing things. So thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Sam. It was a pleasure.
Such an honor. And thanks as well, of course, to our beautiful listeners. Thank you for tuning in. Again, make sure you check out the show notes. We've got a few links we're going to pop in there for you. And, of course, make sure you check out Scout and Cellar, guys. And for all of our Australian listeners, I'm sure they'll be here soon. So watch this space. We'll keep hounding them for you. And thanks again for tuning in this week. We'll see you all again next week. Bye for now, everybody. Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. If you love listening and you found that this was helpful for your direct selling business, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also check out the recommended video that's popped up on your screen right here. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye for now.